thanks for joining me today. We're just going to start straight away. How have the last few months been for you?
They've been a complete change to my normal life. We were down to just two of us and a lodger in the house. And then in lockdown, everybody came back. So we had a full house of my niece from London, one of my daughters from the States, another daughter who was interning. So suddenly it was a house of 5 adults, which was quite a change. And then we got a puppy too.
Wow, it's so interesting to see how everyone's sort of living environment shifted around, and especially if the creatives and trying to make it and work in the same place. I remember your front room, I think it was your sort of studio.
That's my studio. That's where I am now.
Yeah. So how that, I remember we had a chat that you generally work with commissions. How has this been affected by the lockdown period?
Well, yeah, that's definitely slowed, but I did have a really, one positive outcome was a designer I work with. So she's a fashion designer and she has a company and a magazine called Makers Atelier. And I've photographed the last couple of issues of her magazine. And my daughters modeled in one of the very early editions. So during lockdown, they were both home. So we actually photographed the entire issue as a bubble. You know, my girls were the models. I was the photographer. We had my studio to work in. We took walks, every now and again, and took photographs along the way. So it worked out beautifully. It was a kind of win-win situation, except that I didn't have the pleasure of the designer doing the art directing, which is always fun. It's always nice to have that kind of collaboration. But so we had to do that at distance. But I'd say I was in a pretty lucky situation that I had a studio and I could stay home and work. So it was good. And then I also, during lockdown, started a project on my street, which was just photographing all the neighbours. And given how long I've lived here, it was just a wonderful experience of kind of going and introducing myself and saying, this is what I'm thinking of doing and how about it? And some people were a little bit shy, but most people were up for it. And just having a doorstep chat and getting to know them a little bit meant that, when we were out, or if I was in the front garden, I could sort of wave and say hello. And we got a real sense of sort of knowing how the whole street linked up. So that was a really lovely outcome. But we have a plan to show them, but I don't quite know when. So.
Oh, that's very sweet. I remember also you had a portrait sort of setup in your studio as well. How is just a really important element, I guess, is doing a portrait photography for you. Has this become harder to do? Obviously, you've been working with your daughters, but
no, that's been difficult. I haven't had people coming into my studio yet. Yeah, I haven't done that yet. I've worked on location, I've worked out of the house, but I think it's a different thing having people coming into a space where there's lots of people living here already. It's still a bit up in the air. So I think that'll settle down in the autumn. We'll get more of an idea of how that's going to work. Or when it's fewer of us living here, then I think it'll be more straightforward.
Yeah.
But actually, that's a high priority.
Right. So the next question is, what are you planning to show in November and December, part of the open house? Will we see your project with your neighbours?
I think that might be a nice opportunity to show that work. It's not commercial work. It's just a nice project. But COVID has sort of reprioritized everything. One of the artists that I was planning to show in May, before all of this happened, we got into this thing where she would text me and say, I'm going to be walking past your house, and I'd go and sit on the wall outside my house and we'd have a chat. And so I'd say there's been a lot of community building as a result of all being home. So I think it would be quite nice to show that small project as a sort of celebration of what's gone on. And yeah, and I'm trying to be quite flexible about how we might work it for the open house, whether we need to do more outside or have that element, an outside element. So one of the artists that's going to be showing in November, December is a sculptor, so his work will be in the garden and in the house.
True. How many artists will you have with you in the open house, in your house?
I think probably about 6.
Oh wow, okay. Is it all photography related? You have one sculptor?
No. So it's me, I'm the photographer, and I'd be doing portraits and family portraits, which is a nice thing for Christmas, and taking commissions for that. And then there'll be Huntress and Forager, which is a plants and garden lifestyle, making beautiful plant things. And I think Huntress and Forager will make another wreath. Like last year, I did some portraits within a wreath. So I think we'll do that again because it worked really nicely. So one of the artists showing at the Photographer's Greenhouse this winter is Jill Parry, and we collaborated to make a portrait using a model of mine with one of her pots. It's like her pots are like beautiful vessels, like water jugs. So it was an Aquarian portrait. Another potter who is making tableware and more usable pieces. And then a painter, I think, Sonia Walters. But it's a little bit flexible still. We'll see who wants to show on the day. I've just done it as an act of faith. We will show something.